So it started out me wanting to test just your standard external hard drive with maybe an SSD to see not necessarily which one was better, because we know the SSD should be better, but what the difference in improvement was. Maybe do some benchmarks and some games and kind of see how long it took files to run. Yeah, that's not how this one ends up. So, like I said, we started out trying to figure out, and I used just a regular My Passport Ultra. This has a bunch of games on it. It's got some other apps. It's got some things that when I am benchmarking something, it's pretty easy just to point my Steam application to this drive and download everything or run the games off of here. But it is, first of all, it's a little bit older. I know that it's got a notebook hard drive in here, and I thought Western Digital Passport Ultra, maybe there was a chance that it had a 7,200 RPM, but kind of found out that's not the case. I ended up trying to look around, finally found a site called Blizzard Data Recovery. I was able to look and see that on the inside of this is not a 7,200 speed, and not even really that good of a 5,400 RPM. It's more like a WD Blue, which is middle of the road. And I guess, yeah, convenience sake. Now, I've never had a problem with this drive. I will tell you, it's a 2 terabyte. Never had a problem with it. It's always worked great. But especially on older hardware, it does take a long time for games to load. And I sometimes will mention that in games. Sometimes it's much quicker on better systems with better CPUs and all. But still, it explains why it takes so long sometimes to load stuff. My thought process then was, okay, now we know what's in here. It gives us a little bit of comparison to the Samsung. This is also a 2 terabyte, but I had a small problem. The enclosure that I have, it's a Kingwin enclosure. It's a couple years old, not too old, but it's a couple years old. It is a USB 3, and you can see it's got the flat sort of connector. I think they call it like a USB B type or something. I don't remember, but it's got one of those. And it works great when I put a hard disk drive, like a laptop. This is HGST. HGST is a conglomeration of a couple of different companies, but this happens to be a 1 terabyte. It's not the 2 terabyte, but I went ahead and I figured I'd test this too. And what I really found out surprised me. It turns out, I'll go ahead and show the Crystal Disk Mark, the figures here for the WD, the My Passport, which I'll have to say, it surprised me quite a bit. I went ahead and ran 5 passes of a 1 gig test, 73.62, 73.21. These are sequential reads. The writes were somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 megabytes per second, and the random was like a half to a quarter. You can kind of see it there. It's slow even by, I would think, notebook hard drive standards. I compare that to the HGST, and here's the first part of my surprise. It is about 30% better on the sequential, and on the writes, for random writes, it's about twice as good. And it's a 5400 speed. So not ideally, but sort of, I guess you could say, theoretically, same speed, much faster. The enclosure is not the problem with this drive, that's for sure. And that's about what I expected this drive to do. To kind of be fair, this is a 1 terabyte. This one's a 2. And I went ahead, you know what? I'll get a known 7200 speed, Western Digital. I used a 3.5-inch enclosure, and I went ahead and tested that. Now, the surprising thing about this is it actually did better on the sequential, but worse on the random, especially the random write. It did worse than the regular the notebook hard drive. And that I can't explain. But I did test it again, USB 3, just checking it out. Does the sequential read is faster, writes about the same, but the random was off. It was different on here. It was a little bit of a surprise. As I said, I couldn't get the 2 terabyte SSD to work. We're coming back to that. So I tried 2 terabyte, tried 1 terabyte, tried 500 gig. I had to step it down to a 256 gig inland premium. Now, not your biggest hard drive or not your biggest SSD, and certainly it does affect the way that we have to run a test because it didn't have enough, I guess, enough of a buffer to run the 1 gig test. So I had to run a smaller size test, and we'll get to that in a second. Now this, as you can see, I posted again, crystal disk mark up there. This was significantly better with the read and write in sequential, and noticeably better, I mean, very noticeably better in the random read and write as well. Because remember, we were topping out at best, sometimes we were topping out at maybe 1 meg of read and write in random. And at the best so far, we had this getting about 130 on the sequential read. So this was much, much better. And you're saying, okay, well, this is a much smaller test because it's only 64. But I did go back just to make sure and be on the safe side. I ran back to the notebook hard drive, and I went ahead and looked at it again with that same 64 sample. And it's comparable to what it was before. Now, the random writes were a little bit higher on the smaller test than they were on the bigger test, but that's okay because everything else was pretty close to the same. So it gave me a good frame of reference to know that the SSD, even with the smaller test, it gave me a pretty good average, and I can compare to make sure that I wasn't skewing the sample size. So I did my best to make sure that not only the size of the drive didn't make a difference, for instance, 2 terabyte to 1 terabyte, or even 256, but that the size of the test files did not make that big of a difference. So I wanted to make sure of that and kind of compare. But the one thing that really surprised me more than anything was this was pretty much the worst one out of the batch. It's made for being able to be portable and take it on the go and it's 2 terabytes. So you figure there's a large amount of memory or large amount of capacity on here, and it ought to be a good drive and very dependable. It has been dependable. Don't get me wrong. It has been dependable. But I was really surprised to find out that even the 5400 RPM regular notebook hard drive was better than the one that's built to be an external hard drive. Using this in the external case, I mean, it's just a small, light. I'm not going to say lightweight. Well, I can say lightweight. I want to go say flimsy. But, I mean, it's really simple to do. Slide that in there. Boom. That's it. That's all there is to it. It really makes me consider just leaving this one at home instead, because it's not... To me now, it almost seems worthless because it's not doing what I thought it was doing. We'll just put it that way. It's not doing what I thought it was doing. So what happens to this? Yeah, we got a hard drive enclosure from Sabrent. This came today after I'd already started going through this and doing this. I haven't even gotten a chance to open it up yet. I will. I am hoping. It says that it handles 2.5-inch SATAs. So I'm hoping this won't be any issue, but we will finally get a real test and be able to test not using crystal disk mark, because that's almost like cheating. I mean, it's a good benchmark. It tells me a little bit of the health of the drive. I don't want to say a major test of the health, but it does tell me the read and write speeds, sequential and random. It gives me an idea of how quickly my files are loading, uploading, downloading, transferring, and that. But we're not really going to know what a difference it makes until we have a chance to test 2 terabyte on 2 terabyte in a fair fight. And I might even throw in the 7200 just for grins and giggles to see how it compares in between. I have a feeling now that I've tested these. I haven't been able to test this, but I imagine it's going to be so much faster than the 256 gig. But I'm guessing this is going to be the slow one in the lot by far. And this one's going to test somewhere in the middle. And this one's going to be way ahead. In fact, what I'll probably do is I'll probably go ahead and test a 2 terabyte. I might test a 1 terabyte on a 500 gig and run those against the 256 and see where all that goes. In addition to that, I might also take a look at the that passport, my passport or my cloud or whatever it is behind me. I think it's a my cloud. Yeah, this is the my passport. That was my cloud. Another Western Digital. We'll see how that one works on the network. I'm not going to try to USB that one. I'm going to go ahead and hook that one up by Ethernet. See what kind of file transfer we get off of that bad boy. So that's it for now. Obviously, there's going to be another part to this video. I didn't intend there to be, but lately that's been happening a lot, that I try to test one thing and end up with different results for something else. I guess it makes for good content. Hopefully good content, but it definitely makes for content. So we know these two won't work together. This one should. So that's what we'll test next. Also going to be looking at, I got an adapter cable to try to move that Dell setup that was in the Dell pre-built I bought, the refurbished pre-built. And now I think I've got all the parts I need to try to move that into a regular case. And maybe we'll do that soon too. We'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, that's it for this one. I mean, tune in next time when we see if I can actually get the 2 terabyte to work as an external. I got my fingers crossed. I hope you guys are crossing yours too. Anyway, that's all I got for this time, folks. If you found the video helpful or you liked it at all, go ahead and throw a thumbs up on it. Please, 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 please. It makes YouTube think I'm doing a much, much better job than I actually am, and so that would be really cool. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. Probably about 80% of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, and it's really, really easy just to go ahead and mouse over and click that little red button down there. It's so easy to do. And if you don't like it later, you can always, I guess, go back and unclick. But anyway, it makes me feel good for a moment. Just little, yeah, okay. Anyway, that is, like I said, all I have for right now. So tune in next time when I'll be taking another look at this, looking at that Dell, and there's some other stuff going on too. So who knows? Might be something interesting if you don't catch it this time. Maybe something will be better next time. In any thought, that's all I got. So I'll see you later.